Hey neighbor, how is your garden growing? Me, today in my garden, we're going to be talking about some of the best tips for you for your Florida fall vegetable garden. But today, these tips aren't coming from me, they're coming from you. So if you're looking to hear some tips from your fellow Floridian gardeners, this is the video for you. Now, just to be clear, this is fall, which there was grand debates across multiple videos from us Floridians on when does fall officially start? And it ran between all sorts of dates. It ran from everything from just August, school starting, football season, pumpkin spice lattes, or pumpkin spice anything, to the official date in late September, to those who wanted to push it back even further to when the leaves actually fall in November or December or January. But after a very fun battle in the comments section, even Paul would like to say, I concede, fall starts officially in September. So as we talk about these tips, we're talking about the official September, not the fall vibes. And now that Paul has conceded that fall officially started in late September, he has a tip for us. Paul's tip is that start early and start inside. Though he did still want to mention that even though he's conceding, he does still feel like pumpkin spice latte football all start in August, and therefore that's the official start. Even though fall starts officially in late September, our weather can still be quite unpredictable. I mean, not the hot part, not the humid part, but we're getting rainstorms that happen at weird hours and they can come down and smash our baby plants. So by going under your patios or inside, you can have a little bit more control over your baby seedlings. Did I mention the weather's unpredictable? No rain on the radar. Our next tip comes from Big Rich, and he actually has a lot of thoughts and tips that go well beyond just even fall. But his tip for starting seeds in the fall time is the seed trays have to be kept in the shade or the heat will cook them. And that is so true. The sun intensity is still really high at this time of year. So while our vegetables are heading towards their full sun of Florida, more of that 4 hours, when they're seedlings, our sun at this time of year is really intense. So giving them some shade, keeping them in protected areas, whether it's on your patio, lanai, or putting a little bit of a light shade cover over them is really a great idea if you're not gonna start them all the way inside. And for me, I actually do all my seedlings out on my patio. I don't start them inside. We have a rule in my house, nature stays outside. And that works best for us is using the patio area, which is screened in, keeps the bugs out, takes the sun intensity down, and protects it from all this rain. And what some of us Floridians are finding is once you start integrating these tips like Julie, you're gonna end up having so many seedlings that you might not know what to do with them. So my tip back to Julie and any of those who are starting out with too many starts at this time of year is gift them to a neighbor, gift them to a friend, because seed starting is one of the more challenging skills for newbies to come and conquer. So helping them along with some of your baby starts, if you got too many, can be a really great gift to start the fall season. But we've got seed starting tips, but the question is, what should we be planting when it comes to fall Florida vegetable gardening? Well, Christine says, since I'm new to Florida vegetable gardening, I decided to just focus on 2 or 3 things we eat a ton of, which of course I think is an excellent tip. She didn't complicate things with stuff we don't eat a ton of. We eat lots of sweet potatoes, pumpkins, and beans, therefore we've been growing these. And so her advice to you is, do not overwhelm yourself, just do a few crops that you know you'll use everything. And I think this is such a great tip on a lot of levels. One, while it's fun to explore and try new things, if you're not gonna eat it, if you don't know if you're gonna eat it, you're eating up a lot of space for a lot of time for this crop that who knows. The other thing is that Christine didn't mention this, but I think is a really good point and adds to being able to grow a ton of food that you eat, is that when you take a space and you put 20, 30, 40 different crops in a small space, you're only gonna get like a little bit of each thing. And so it's easier sometimes to grow a lot of something, like have a lot of tomatoes, and then be able just to bring in the little ingredients that you need to make a tomato sauce or a bruschetta or whichever thing you want. That might be more advantageous than growing too many things. So I love this tip, Christine. And if you're thinking to yourself, I get it, I like the idea, but what are the Floridians growing? Well, I polled you guys and I asked, hey, in fall, what's your favorite thing to grow? And here's what you guys said. 40% of Floridians say tomatoes is where it's at, followed by 21% with peppers, 18% with carrots, 8% for beans, and 13% something else. But let's dive a little bit deeper into what you guys said you were gonna be growing. Carrot Mama said she tracked down those 4th of July hybrid tomatoes that I keep recommending, which, yay, I'm so glad that you were able to track those down because they did work really well in my garden and they produced a lot of tomatoes. But Carrot Mama had more to add. 4th of July hybrids, they were the first tomato seed variety to germinate and they looked great as seedlings. I need to get them in the ground soon. I love hearing this, that the success that I'm having is able to happen in your garden too, because I don't want to recommend things that just work in my garden. I want to make sure you can grow these things too. So I'm so happy Carrot Mama is finding success with 4th of July hybrid tomatoes. And in addition, Christopher even wanted to share that he's doing 5 different tomato types and 3 different pepper types. When it comes to growing, Linda was saying she does all of the above, but her favorite, hands down, and it wasn't on the list, was lettuce. She grew it for the first time last year and loved it. I was out every day picking what I needed. Delicious. Oh, and kale too. And yes, I do recognize that the majority of what I listed on that poll were all warm weather crops. So it's great that Linda's already getting into cold weather crops, because here in Florida in fall, we can be doing warm weather crops and then we quickly move into cold weather crops like lettuce and kale. And if you're thinking about getting in cold weather crops, you might want to do what Barbara says, which is she loves growing all of these warm weather crops, but she grew carrots last year for the first time and fell in love. And I love her positive attitude. She had a struggle with peppers, but she's not giving up. And while I'll be growing a lot of bell peppers, Treehouse said they mostly are going to be growing hot pepper. And if you continue to look for inspirations, Flowers for Bees, Veggies for Me was saying, I'm planting this year is sweet potatoes, strawberries, garlic, and tomatoes from seed. I love that you have a mixture of hot weather crops, warm weather crops, and you're even getting into one of the best things to grow in Florida, which is strawberries, which we're going to get into more of the strawberry tips in a second. And with warm weather crops, Love Peacocks said eggplants, bell peppers, and cucumbers, which I've just planted, do the best here in Florida, specifically Central Florida. Gardener Earth Guy, if you're gonna grow something in the Panhandle, he says turnips grow great in Panhandle. It's my staple along with snow pea. And Knitter Mom says she's kind of similar. She's focusing on sugar snap peas, tomatoes, and strawberries. And Libby Smith, she's gonna be growing the little tomatoes. I recommend everyone do the big tomatoes. If you're gonna do them, this is the time of year. But she says she's a little different. She adores the tiny tomatoes, things like Everglades tomatoes. I don't really eat any other tomatoes. I don't use ketchup or tomato sauce, so she doesn't really need those big tomatoes. But greens, cherry tomatoes, herbs, and broccoli are my main crops this year. And it's her first year. So that was just a list of idea of crops, but that didn't really tell us much about varieties. But there were some of you who had some recommendations when it came to varieties. Starting with Katie K, she said, I might have accidentally stumbled upon a tomato variety for South Florida. And we know it can be a struggle to grow classic vegetables down in South Florida. But what she's recommending is, long story short, I planted 3 black crim seedlings in the middle of July. I planted them on the east side of a fruit tree to protect them from evening sunlight and heat. Thank you, Katie, for the recommendation. I hadn't even heard of black crim tomatoes before, and I would love to hear from you guys. Have you heard of them? Have you had any success? And actually, Hazel Bell Farm coming to the rescue says black crim tomatoes are my go-to tomatoes. But they also have some additional recommendations. They also said they discovered Bell Star broccoli a couple of years ago, and now it's their favorite. They live in Northeast Florida. They're also into shishito and baby honey bell peppers, which, while they survived through the summertime, are coming back strong. Jalapenos are still going strong, and of course they love butter crunch lettuce here. That's a lot of varieties, and a few of these I have never even heard of before, so they're definitely gonna go on my list in my planner for future to be considered to try in my garden. One of the new things I'm trying this year is to start Cherokee purple tomatoes from seed, but Karen Christie actually has an alternative purple tomato that you might want to consider. Eva purple ball tomatoes have done well for her in Central Florida. They're not quite as big as purple Cherokee, but they're still a good tomato. Thank you. And if you would like another recommendation, Knitting Mommy Arts said they hadn't heard of Carolina bell peppers, which y'all are the ones who recommended it, and I'm trying for the first time this year. But she's trying a new bell pepper. It's called the YOLO Wonder Bell Pepper. I guess you only live once. She happened on it when she was on Sandia Seeds Company's site, and she got some hatch pepper seeds as well. So she's giving them a try. So if you've tried YOLO Wonder Peppers, love to hear if those are doing well. And I'll love to hear from you, Knitting Mommy, to see how those went. Good, bad, or ugly. Now, one of the things that everyone seemed to be really passionate about giving tips about was talking green alternatives. And the big things is that as we head into the colder months, we're thinking about those cold weather crops like lettuces, kales, and also spinaches. But I don't know if you are like me. You might have struggled with spinach in the past, and the Floridians had some tips. So listen in. First off, Cottage Farm Flowers they're right with me. They live in St. Pete also, and they were like, spinach isn't working for me. Got really buggy and gross, but they've grown Malabar spinach. First year, it was great. Second year, not so much. Third year, nada. But I grew a few varieties of kale that work really well for me using the cut and come again method like I do for everything. They also recommended romaine lettuce. This did really well for them too. Which just makes me feel a little bit better. Maybe makes you feel a little bit better that it's not just a me problem. It's other people are having the same problem. But you know what? None of your business actually has some tips for us if we want to grow classic spinach here in Florida. Spinach is a bit tricky here. Start it inside, transplant in November in a bed prepared with dolomite to be sure the pH is neutral or slightly alkaline, and a little boric acid or borax to make sure it's not short of boron. It is common for Florida sand to be short of boron. 2 teaspoons of boric acid per 100 square feet is enough. Too much can sterilize the soil. Dissolve it in water and sprinkle it on. Don't let the spinach dry out. Thank you, because I know there's so many people who would like to grow classic spinach, and I love that you gave us step-by-step what to do. But if we don't want to go with a classic spinach, Debbie A said, best Florida spinach, it's fast growing and perennial, and it's gonna be longevity spinach. But this spinach, if you're gonna grow it, make sure you give it about 3 feet or so of space. Loves the sandy ground, which who doesn't love a plant that loves sandy soil here in Florida? Because we all have it. Pretty much everyone here has it. How much they have of it, but this also sounds like longevity spinach would be better outside of our classic vegetable garden beds because it likes that sandier soil, and hopefully in your vegetable garden bed, you've amended your sandy soil enough for all the other crops. Ms. Era said, you can eat the beet leaves, radish leaves, pumpkin leaves, fig leaves, and others. Avocado leaves for tea, passion fruit tea leaves, and so many other leaves many don't know are even edible. And that's such a great point, that when it comes to all these plants is that we can eat so many of them, and most of the time we're just focused on one part of the plant, but so many of them, the whole thing is edible. But sometimes we just want something that's like just like a spinach or a green. We want to get that vitamin K in our diet. We want to be able to add it to the smoothie or make a salad from it. And Jessica said tatsoi, the best spinach substitute I've ever grown as far as taste, texture, being close to spinach. It grows like a beast for me fall through spring. I've also got katuk growing perennially for an all year add-in and love the slightly sweet taste. They live in zone 10A. And see, and that's what I'm talking about. Thank you, Jessica, because sometimes we talk about these alternatives and it's like they're an alternative in just one piece. Like they give you the vitamin K, or you can put them in a smoothie, or you can put them in a sauté dish, but you're not gonna get like a one-to-one replacement. But it sounds like tatsoi, I'm definitely putting this on my list of things to try. But if you're looking for something that can potentially go even further beyond, especially for my people who lives in the zone 10s, Amy Sizemore said Brazilian spinach grows crazy all year long. And Laura, she had some tip on what you could use instead when it comes to salads, and that is broccolini. We love broccolini, says Laura, even when it bolts. The flowers and new leaves make a wonderful salad with raisins or craisins and a little bit of mayonnaise. So simple and delicious, the small floret stems and leaves are tender. That sounds worth trying. What do you guys think? And if you're still looking for spinach substitutes, the list goes on. You guys came out in full force with spinach alternatives, and Rutilation was saying chard is my spinach alternative. I don't really care for it, but it fills in fine for a cooked dish. My broccoli leaves go into the pot with the rest of the brassicas to stretch my collards because that darn cabbage white is always on its way to take out my brassicas. You know, I don't know that I've ever grown a Swiss chard down here in Florida. I'm gonna go with no, I haven't. How about you guys? Have you been growing Swiss chard? And before we move on to strawberries, we have one more alternative that you might want to consider, and that is gonna be amaranth greens. JB Witten is recommending as a great alternative to spinach. Y'all really came out in full force with spinach and greens alternatives for us to grow here in Florida, and I really appreciate you. And actually, if there's something you've been struggling with to try to figure out, go ahead and throw it down in the comments, because all of our fellow Floridian neighbors here, man, they coming with things that we could do, and we can do it differently so that we can become better at growing food down here in the Sunshine State. Talk strawberries, because fall is the time of year when we could be planting strawberries. Whether you're starting from bare roots or you're able to pick up some plants, especially in the Central Florida area near Lakeland, it's strawberry time of year. And y'all had some stuff to say about strawberries and tips for your fellow Floridian neighbors. First tip is Mickey Maya again said strawberries in a tower. like a green stalk. Great way to grow strawberries vertically. And I think that this is so smart. We have so much pest pressure. We have so many things that want to eat sweet, juicy, unprotected fruits. And going vertical can be such a great way to be able to produce a lot in a small space, which Molly seconds this point from Mickey, which is I need a green stalk for my strawberries. And I might need one. I don't know where I'd put it. Y'all can recommend for me. Love the tips, because I'm not really sure where I would put it in my garden. But I do agree, going vertical and having more strawberries is something I need in my life. And if you're looking at the price tag of green stalks and you're thinking to yourself, those are just a little bit too expensive for you, well, Julie has a great recommendation, which is Dollar Tree has stackable planters, perfect for strawberries. So we could go with a green stalk or something that's a little bit more economical. And also Saucy Reuben had some recommendations too, which was, if you don't want to go with some of the varieties that I was recommending and some others were recommending, things like Albion, Chandler, Everbearing, Quinault, stuff like that, that there actually are wild strawberries like the native Fragaria virginiana and the alpine varieties grow really well in our heat and sandy soils. We love a plant that grows in sandy soils. It can also tolerate lots of shade. Small but packs lots of unique flavor, perfect for small containers or hanging baskets. They're mainly grown from seeds, which can be affordable for people not wanting to pay bare root prices. I like that. And I love that they grow in shade, because I feel like that's where there's just, we can't do full sun here in Florida. And then you always have a lot of shade because we're trying to, you know, decrease the heat here in Florida. So having something that does well in a shady area, oh, I like that. Thank you, Saucy Reuben. Now, in one of my recent videos, I was talking about things we should be thinking about for fall gardening, and one of them was doing inventory on your seeds. And I pointed out that, you know, seed collecting and starting seeds seem to be two different hobbies, and that you may be like me and you have a bunch of old seed packets. And I was saying, like, you don't necessarily need to throw them away. And your fellow Floridian neighbors who are gardeners, they agreed. And here's what they had to say. Art, or I Go Crazy, said, older seeds are great for chaos gardening. Just throw them out there and see what grows. Which I love this, because we're definitely of a mindset of waste not, want not. So having a chaos garden and just being surprised by what comes back, always a fun thing. But here's the thing, one of the reasons that seeds can go bad really fast here in Florida is because of the humidity. Moisture and seeds not going in the ground are not really great for making sure you can hold them for long term. But Julie Ann actually had a great recommendation on this front. She was talking about open seed package storage. She found that Target carries a 1 cup vertical Ziploc bag that fits most seed packets perfectly. Very handy and helps keep the humidity out. And that is such a great recommendation. And I love hearing tips about how we can take things and make them last longer, so that when we use our dollars, we use them super wisely. So thank you, Julianne, for that recommendation. And if you're loving these tips and you're just looking for even more tips, you might be like Elise, and she just says she appreciates all these monthly reminders and that she likes that I release them a little bit on the early side so that you guys have time to get prepared. And if you're interested in staying on top of things like Elise, you can go ahead and pick up the Wild Floridian Garden Planner right here. It has tons of information for every season and every month for right here in Florida. And if you're looking for my tips on what you should be doing for fall, go ahead and check out this video right here. Okay, I'll see you soon. Bye.